Well, now we've all done an intro, so I don't know who's doing it this week.
You spoke first, it's you.
God damn it.
Yeah, it's been a
Uh,
while since I've heard an intro from this guy.
yeah, it's been like 3 weeks. So yeah, we're the Grumpy Dungeon Masters. I'm Jay, joined by Christopher, Dan, and Christian. And tonight we're probably gonna bitch about the new Dungeon Masters Guide, right? That's the plan.
I mean, I
Or
have
if
some
it-
good things
yeah,
to say.
yeah.
I have to say we're gonna bitch about something because that's what we do on this podcast.
Yeah.
Oh, I've got my gripes.
All right. Somebody's got something. I still have yet to see it because I haven't bought it. And there's no PDF of it. So,
Right, because PDFs are not sold for D&D products.
yep.
Yeah, gotta pay that sweet
You can,
subscription money.
yeah, you can actually buy the book. You know,
That's
You know
yeah,
what? That actually is one of my gripes, is that they won't sell the PDFs to these, which I think is BS.
yeah,
Will they only basically sell it if you buy it on D&D Beyond?
That is the only buying it on D&D Beyond or one of the other VTTs is the only way to get a quote unquote digital copy of it.
Way to
of
encourage
course.
piracy, Watsy.
Oh yeah, that definitely is, and I'm sure that somehow magically at some point I'm going to end up with a PDF of it. I say that in
Yar.
quotations, as I have no plans of actually buying the book because I don't need the book.
Mm-hmm.
So why should we buy the book? I think we're on chapter 4. I think we went over the first 3 chapters last
yeah.
week.
Well,
Yeah.
I decided
Yeah.
to play test something from Chapter 4 tonight, actually.
Oh, perfect.
What is chapter 4?
Chapter 4 is running the game. It's creating adventures. It's example adventure situations. It's patrons. It's hooks. It is what I used this tonight, which was their new version of CR, which is they've done away with CR entirely. And instead, they give you an XP budget per character based on the party's level, and it gives you an example of low, moderate, or high encounters and what exactly those mean. So, for example, tonight I had a level 18 party running a high level game, 6 players. So it is 6 players times level 18 for a moderate encounter. I had, let's see,
He's having to do math just to figure it
yeah,
out.
64,200 XP to use. So, I went and decided, okay, I'm going to run an undead encounter. I'm going to start with the big bad from this one. It's going to be a Death Knight. So the Death Knight is worth how much? Death Knight is worth let's see, he is a CR 17, so he's worth 18,000 XP. And then I worked it back from there and was like, okay, I'm going to throw in a bunch of Frost Giant skeletons. And Frost Giant skeletons actually not that, high as CR.
Yeah.
Those guys are, CR, I think 5, something like that.
So yeah, they're somewhere in that
You're
range.
6, 2,300 XP. So I threw 6 of those guys in there. And then I threw in a couple of skeletal mages. Then I threw in a couple of other things. I threw a night and put the Death Knight on a nightmare. And at the end of the day, I created a moderate encounter. And these are level 18 characters. So if they wanted to, they could just whip out the 7th, 8th, and 9th level spells and just, steamroll it. But they're cautious 18th level characters, so they didn't. So they used their cantrips, they used some other stuff until things started actually getting a little dire, and they actually started pulling out the higher level spells. And all in all, it was a good hour and a half long combat. A couple characters went down, an NPC that got summoned got destroyed, and at the end of the day, they're like, okay, if we did a short rest, we could probably do another one of those encounters, and that would have been fine. So it did. They never felt like they were going to necessarily lose, but they also didn't feel like they could just use their cantrips and not use any of their abilities and walk over everything either. So far, XP budgeting, definitely like it better than trying to determine a encounter for a party of more than 4 people from 2014 DMG, where you had to rely on CR and it not really working when you have an extra person or 2,
Right.
and being real swingy otherwise. So I've actually created 3 encounters on the way to the place that they're going on the quest to go investigate, and the next encounter is going to be a low encounter difficulty after some exploration, and then the last one is going to be some more exploration followed by a deadly or high encounter difficulty. So we'll see how
Ah.
that ends up. Got some extra stuff in there, like from the new Eva Vecna book. Breath Drinker is going to be on the menu, along with Merilith and some other demons that are being crawling up behind them and stuff like that. So they'll actually, my guess, will have to actually pull out their high level spells, and if they don't, if they treat it like it's just yet another encounter, it could very well be deadly quickly. Because a lot of those things have, like, if so and so, if this guy hits you, you get grappled. If you get grappled, then this thing happens and you become paralyzed or you become restrained or whatever. So it could very quickly turn into a deadly encounter. So anyway, that's the thing that I have play tested, and I definitely like a whole lot more than the previous edition.
So it
It does.
sounds
It
good.
reminds me more of second and third edition of how you would
Mhm.
do it,
Yeah.
especially second edition. But like fifth edition, they clearly wanted to move away from like leveling up with XP, and past like the first module, like they would just tell you when to level up and chapter after chapter, and you basically were just left to rely on CR, which never really worked. So anyway,
Yeah. Yeah, second edition, like that's what I started with. I remember all the monsters just had an XP value. There wasn't a challenge rating or anything like that.
hmm
And you had to sort of navigate how dangerous, an encounter was based on how much experience something is worth.
right,
Um, it definitely worked better than challenge rating even back then. Yeah, because it's the same thing. You get extra guys in. Well, let's add in X amount of XP to this thing to
yeah,
sort of balance it out. Whereas
yeah.
challenge rating, it's like I don't know. Do I throw in another CR2 monster or four of them? I'm just sort of guessing here when
Yeah, I
you have
mean, there's
six
been a
players.
number of times when when I'm building an encounter and I'm like, okay, here's the big thing from the encounter. They're level 10 and I throw a CR12, so that should be kind of difficult. But I can't just throw a single CR12 because action economy, they're just not going to
Mm.
survive without legendary actions. And even then, it needs minions. So there's been a number of times I've added like a bunch of extra minions, and then suddenly, things get really, really badly swinging. Like, I overstated the shit out of this encounter. This was not supposed to be this deadly. And I'm like, yeah, you hit the guy once and he's dead. It's a
Yep.
minion. It's fine. And busy correcting course mid game. So I'm hoping that this is better, and I'm interested in seeing how the new bestiary lays out, and if they change the XP values of some classic monsters rather than keeping what they already have. Uh, because I mean, some of the monsters, especially in 2014's Monster Manual, is just kind of just that they're just not great. They're not good monsters. They're just
Oh
stacks of
yeah.
hit points that can take lots of hits, and maybe once or twice around can hit you pretty hard. Maybe.
Here's hoping that the new monster manual is more than just sacks of hit points.
What
Well,
what did you use for the? You said you were throwing a Merilith in there.
Oh yeah, let me pull up that encounter. So the encounter I ended up doing there is a Merilith is, I guess, the big boss of the encounter.
yeah, they're like
Um,
CR16, I
Are
think.
you
yeah,
running this like the standard monster
I'm
manual
running
one?
a classic Merilith from the Monster Manual. I haven't adapted any of the third party stats for them or anything like that yet. They're not going to get any of that until they actually hit the abyss. Uh, but the creatures that are in that encounter are going to be, and if you're in my Throne of Bloodstone game, stop listening now. Um, we've got, like I said, two Breath Drinkers, which are really cool monsters they came out with
Yeah,
for the Eve of Vecna. Or at least I'm sure they're remakes of earlier edition monsters,
they
but
are.
they are CR14 monsters. They have innervating claws. They start invisible. They absorb radiant damage, and actually any radiant damage they take just fucking heals them, which is just, considering we've got people in the party with a Sunblade, they got a cleric, you got a paladin. That's not going to go well for them. Then I have a classic Merilith who is a CR. What is she? She's CR16. And I've got another monster from another demon from Eva Vecna called a Vlazok, which are CR11 demons, and they have like a blood frenzy. If anything near them has less than all its full hit points, it makes attack rolls at advantage. It's basically like a huge, I don't know, skeletal looking dog, but
All right.
it has a bunch of spikes all over it. It has two gore attacks around. It knocks things prone if they hit. But I've got 6 of those, a Marilith, and 2 of these breath drinkers, and that's the fight. But that is considered to be a deadly or high difficulty encounter. So see how it plays out. They should be able to steamroll the low difficulty encounter, which is just like ogre zombies and like a beholder zombie and just some greater zombies from Tales from the Yawning Portal. Nothing special, but takes resources.
Yep. Something to make them burn a couple of things.
Yeah.
So I looked at the
approach it.
I looked at D&D Beyond. Looked at the DM's guide section for starting the monsters that you just went over.
Yeah.
And I was looking at the examples, and all the monsters that they use for the examples are still statted for 2014, except the skeleton, which is using the 2024 rules, but the free rules that came out. Okay. So
Really?
So the difference between the two skeletons from 2014 and 2024 is the 2014 skeleton has 13 AC, but has armor scraps, and has a 14 dexterity, understands all languages that it knew in life, and has a +4 to hit, and does a 1d6 +2 damage. The 2024 current one just has an armor class of 13, has a 16 dexterity. It's not wearing any armor scraps. Understands the languages it knew in life. So it has a +5 to hit and a 1d6 +3 damage.
+5 to hit isn't bad for a skeleton.
No, I love how they took away his armor scraps and gave him 2 more dexterity. The XP value is exactly the same. They're both worth 50 experience.
Yeah, I mean, it's still vulnerable to bludgeoning, I assume.
Yep, nothing else really changed. I was just trying to find one of the examples to see how much it changed in 2024, and they have scaled up a lot of the 2024 monsters. So, unfortunately, none of the other ones link correctly. So,
I've got this chapter open, so if you guys want me to finish up just my assessment of this chapter, I can. So it kind of begins with step-by-step creating of adventures. It gives you it gives you a pretty decent list of adventure situations. Like it gives you a D20 roll for a level 1 to 4 adventure situation, level 5 to 10, levels tier 1, 2, and 3 and 4, obviously. So like a 15 on a tier 1 to 4 adventure is creatures from the Feywild enter the world and cause mischief and misfortune among villagers and their livestock. And it's just these are things are like you can just include in the adventure that you're trying to write, but it gives you different adventure conflicts examples and situations. It also explains in a very very nice little text box that says guide rails versus railroads as far as running a game. And some people prefer one, some people prefer the other. It's best to talk to your players before you start a game because some people just want a sandbox, which is it's true. I mean, I hate railroads. I don't mind guide rails.
I don't know anyone who likes railroads when it
Yeah.
comes to tabletops. I don't think I've met anyone who does.
I know a couple, and I know a couple who run. They say that it's guide rails, but it ends up being a railroad, or at least it feels like it.
I have to sometimes with the Ventures League just because.
Yeah, that's
that's fair.
Well, that seems to be a lot the way a lot of the standard like WotC produced D&D modules are written.
Yeah.
As there's, I guess some of them might be late, but they do tend to be like this. Chapter 1 can be solved in one way, and it must be done first to go to chapter 2 to do the next thing, which is solved in this particular way, and then you must do that to go to the next point. Like it's like playing a video game where you have to get through the checkpoints. Like,
and I don't mind that as much. So like Eve of Ruin is a very simple adventure. I think any DM there's enough stuff there, no matter what their skill level is, that they could probably pick up that book and just run it page by page, and everything things would be fine. They give enough explanation as to like, okay, you're going to Eberron. Eberron is this. You're here in Eberron. You're only in this small section. You're getting a taste of the world and the scenery, and they go here, do this. There's some like wiggle room to like explore things, but don't fret over it.
Yeah,
here's your
yeah.
random encounters.
So
Just get in, get out,
I
just
don't.
go home.
just to expand on that though, with the DMG is again this another one of those text boxes using published adventures. It says published adventures includes a pre-generated scenario with maps, NPCs, monsters, and treasures you need to run it. You can adjust a published adventure so it better suits your campaign and appeals to your players. For example, you can replace the villain of an adventure with one the players have already encountered in your campaign. Add details from your own campaign setting to the adventure that involves your players, and integrate things that you've already designed. And it basically gives you license to just like you don't have to run it exactly by the book. Which if you're a kid picking up the Eve of Ruin, you're going to run it exactly the way it is because you don't know any better. But just even reading that little text box kind of gives you the license, like, oh, I don't have to run it like this. I mean, I guess Wapel still does because Avengers League, but nobody else does. I can say I have honestly never ever once run an adventure exactly the way it's written, not once. And I know Jay. I think the one time that you have run an adventure, you've written exactly the way it was written.
With I won't say it was 100%, but yeah, like 95+% as written. There was one encounter that I hated so bad. I was like, I'm not doing it or I'm changing it.
Which one was that? I've got to ask. Was it
It-
Grimskala?
No, it was something to do with the barbarian tribes. I'd have to honestly look it
no,
up.
I think it is Grimskala. It's when the tests of the faith or
Yes,
whatever.
yes.
Yeah, I completely subverted that too. I had them just go talk to the imprisoned mage at the wretched prison, and or no, what was it called? What's the big tower prison in
Yeah.
Frosthaven?
I don't remember. I know what you're talking about though.
It's the one that was
Rebel-
in the D&D movie.
Yeah.
Rebel
Revel's End, that's what it's called. So they go there and they ended up having to talk to an NPC there, and basically it's like, yeah, you guys have a mage with you. Just use magic to get around the bullshit. Don't deal with and give into what the evil goddess wants you to do. And they definitely just use pass wall and some other and dimension door and some other bullshit to get around it. And I just had an ice beholder from Wapel's adventure that he wrote, waiting on the other side that descended from the sea, like an ice cube dropping down. But I felt that was, for at least the game that I was running and the party that was playing in my game, was much more appropriate for what they were gonna do, because these fucking people weren't gonna basically swear to the Frost Maiden to get a stupid book to open a glacier. They're not gonna do that. It's just it was.
But that's what I mean. That like they design it. They're like as designed. There's one key, and that's kind of my problem with a lot of written D&D modules. Is except really with Curse of Strahd, which is the only one that kind of had a small sandbox where your players could kind of go through and figure
Right.
things out and pick their way around. And I think that's why, ironically, that is the most well-regarded and best-selling adventure they've made for 5th edition.
And honestly, the fact that they kept the 1980s Weiss and Hickman version of it, where the Troika reading really defines how the adventure's going to go.
Yeah, it does.
It is. It doesn't matter if you've played Curse of Strahd. It's different every time you play it because of the
Yeah.
Troika reading. Every time. And it
Mhm.
could be exponentially difficult or all nearly impossible. You could have all of the things you're supposed to find in Castle Ravenloft, and you're just putzing around in Barovia until you got enough level to ride that ride.
I mean, that's what we're doing when we're playing it. We get to play again this Friday, I think, and
Awesome.
I missed the last game session, but yeah, we're just sort of picking through all of these little side quests, just trying to survive and gain enough experience and power to be able to ride the ride.
Because what Curse of Strahd did well, and what the original Castle Ravenloft did, is something of more of that. There was in old school D&D adventures, they didn't consider balance in encounters because you were not meant to be able. The idea wasn't that I can fight through every encounter if I choose to.
Yeah.
It was the idea was, well, we're going to represent the world or this adventure locale as it is, and then the players make their decisions. Just because we put a big dragon in there doesn't mean that we expect them to fight it. And sometimes, just like in those like open world video games where you wander in an area where you're clearly not ready to be, those are the consequences. If you decide, hey, we're level 3, oh, it's a venerable dragon, let's go test it out. Probably going to die.
We're level 3. There's a whole bunch of vampire spawn in this room. We'll
No,
do
it's-
fine. Nothing to worry about here.
Yeah, and that was kind of meant to be the case of like it would encourage you to think of other solutions or to pick your battles wisely or try to come up with a tactical advantage if you were going to engage in the battle. Whereas 5th edition is more everything should be balanced so that a party can overcome everything with combat.
Yeah, I'm glad Strahd is not balanced in that manner.
That's
Yeah.
why I wish they would take adventures and they would write adventures more for like the beginner and advanced, kind of like they used to do. I like I'm okay with the current adventures being kind of railroady. Like Eve of Ruin is very railroady, but it's kind of set up to be that way. There's very little you can do to affect the story unless you find out like one thing at the very beginning, and even then, like you'd have to stumble into it. I think, like unless you have like a one to like a thief or a rogue that's just I want to steal everything, and you steal the right thing, and then oh shit, that's the bad guy. And I I don't mind
That's
it very. I don't mind it for like Adventures League. If I was running Eve of Ruin, I wouldn't run Eve of Ruin. I would run something to do with the stupid obelisks that were, I think, supposed to be the main part of that. Um, but I think with Eve of Ruin, like I said, I don't mind that it is, but I like too that Frostbane was very open worldy and I could kind of tailor the story to me. So I think there should be both from published modules perspective. You need to give some DMs that railroady story, or if you want to tell a story with a very narrow outcome and you want people just to play it to experience it, then being a little railroady with the published adventure is okay, but you want to give people something to do as well, like Dragon Heist. Like you can play Dragon Heist 4 times separately, but you could also mix it up and turn it into your own campaign setting and kind of just go fucking bonkers with it, like I'm doing. And and then shit happens, and all of a sudden you're fighting just giant undead planets, and it's okay to go off the fucking rails.
yeah. I gotta say, I was I think Eve of Ruin is I don't know one of their most disappointing adventures. For an
Yeah.
adventure featuring Vecna and dancing around different planes and supposed to be this cool high stakes kind of capstone to that edition, the fact that it was a railroad, the fact that the stats for Vecna were terrible, it was very disappointing. I wanted something that was on the level of writing and care and story that like Curse of Strahd had. That would have been a better send off for that version. But no, you got a roller coaster where you're on the track, you cannot get off it. You're going to go through those things. You're going to go through all the sections of the Monster Plantation.
Hey guys, lulz, 50th anniversary. We're going to give you a little glimpse of Monster Plantation going to every one of the worlds except for Dark Sun. But you
Yep.
add that one in because that's cool too. But man, yeah, I was also had high hopes and was looking forward to Vecna too, and
Oh.
was sorely disappointed by it.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I am disappointed it's not much grander than it is. Especially being such a capstone villain.
I will say in their defense, every Vecna-based story and module written for Greyhawk was also dog shit. I'm not joking on that. If you look them up, they are fucking terrible.
I mean,
A
I
friend of
like the
ours who
one
is
in
running
fourth
us through
edition.
Greyhawk and has been for 4 years, said as much whenever he said that I wanted to make Vecna be the big bad of my story, but what I was also very disappointed when I found all of the 3 adventures that were feature him were just terrible. So he basically cobbled together different pieces of it. It took like locations featured in this one and reasons he's doing this thing or that thing, but like the actual adventure themselves were just terrible. I mean, I'm not surprised on account of like the highest level adventure written for second edition was Throne of Bloodstone, and it is fucking
It's
awful. It
batshit
is
bonkers.
I mean, bonkers. It's awful. It is not an adventure. It is, hey y'all, go to the abyss and then get a whole bunch of undead thrown at you until you die. That's like undead and demons is like, okay,
But hey, you could get to level 100.
yeah, maybe.
I mean,
Anyway,
I
back. Oh, good.
yeah. I don't want to get too sidetracked. It's just I
Too
think
late.
yeah, I know. A lot of these adventures just like they're meant to inspire and do things too. I think that's why Vecna has been around for so long. Yeah, all of his adventures have been fucking dog shit, but he's still like a mainstay villain that everyone loves. Probably because everyone had to take their stories, the dog shit stories, and make them something bigger and grander, and then rose tinted
Yeah,
glasses and all
Yeah,
that.
they designed a good character. They gave him good characterization. He's an excellent villain. He's the
he's
kind
an
of
excellent
villain
villain, and
you
it's
love to hate and you love to fight against.
and it's one of those things where just like, even if you're homebrewing a campaign, you're 13-year-old kid in your mom's basement with the DMG from second edition. You flip to the page that has the Iron Hand effect on it. You read the description, which is like a full page back in second edition, and like,
Mhm.
fuck, I got to put this in my game. This is fucking crazy. I got to my fucking players with this shit.
I never said
awesome.
that. I was like, oh, this is fucking. That's way too powerful. I don't want that shit in my game.
But I mean, it's the same sort of thing. Like, sometimes you want to just build an adventure around a certain artifact or legendary item or something like that. Like, suddenly the Sword of Kos appears in your game, or dragon orbs, or the Axe of the Dwarvish Lords, and suddenly you're writing a campaign around it. And I actually really kind of like that, having some sort of epic, hero's weapon or villain's, hand that appears in a game, and you're like, what the fuck? Have we acquired this? So he had to have wanted us to find this, and people are just making up the reasons why they ended up finding this thing.
The Pelvis
Um,
of Vecna.
yeah, and
Mhm.
in this in creating encounters and creating an adventure, they actually mentioned some of that. It's like, sometimes you can find inspiration for an adventure just by flipping to the chapter 7 where the magic items are, and that's actually true.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, that's absolutely true, and I absolutely also just kind of sometimes randomly flip through monsters, or look at the CR of monsters and be like, okay, what can I build around this thing? This is CR 12. Okay, I could build an encounter around this. It's just one of those things that you end up doing eventually. But
I do that. I do that all the damn time. Like,
yeah, I
oh,
mean, a lot of the stuff is like, I've never had one of these in my game. I'm going to throw one of these in.
I'm going to
So,
talk about the ecology of a monster that most people have never
oh
used later
Lord.
on. So
Well, okay. I didn't know.
you guys are extremely familiar with it. I assure you. At least I know Dan and Christian aren't, but
Yeah.
a lot of people
Ecology
aren't.
of Akuatoa.
Well, I'll save my ecology for next time.
Oh well, I mean, if you have an ecology, we could do that.
We can do double ecologies.
Yeah, and double
Um,
ecology.
just to continue on chapter 4 real quick here, just kind of skim through it. You got monster behavior, attitudes, morale is back in the game again, which is cool. So things just don't fight till the death.
Yeah.
Although combat is so quick in 5th edition, like, monsters never really have time to retreat.
Yeah.
um, Bringing your game to an end, individual rewards, and gives you kind of an example of random rolls for individual treasure you might find on an encounter based on the challenge rating, which is interesting because they're showing challenge rating again in the DMG here. It says,
Huh.
uh, you can use the random individual table to determine how much treasure a single monster has based on its challenge rating. The table includes the average total in parentheses. So CR
Yeah.
is apparently not completely gone, but
They give you the
it's
formula for calculating CR as a reward based on the players.
mm. Yeah. So there's quest rewards, treasure
Well,
themes,
well,
arcana,
hold on.
armor.
I want to touch on that.
Okay.
I remember a little bit ago, I messaged you guys. It's like, hey, my character just completed this huge quest. I want to give out some experience points for it because I'm trying to the experience side of the game.
Mm.
And you're like, no, fuck that. They already got the experience for the monsters. It's like, no, but I feel like, and this may be the MMO player in me, but you complete a quest. Yeah, you got the experience for killing the monster, but you still get experience for turning into quests. So what should I do? And I was really excited when this section had a quest, quest reward section. All right, and I was like, oh, cool.
Paragraph.
Let me go there to the paragraph that it is, and then in the paragraph it's like Sometimes characters are paid for completing a quest. To determine a suitable request reward, roll once on the random treasure hoard table,
Yeah.
using a character's level for the CR. Fuck
I
that.
mean,
I
I
wanted
mean,
goddamn XP, man.
No.
they've been moving away from XP since 3rd edition, man. You know that.
I know that, but I still wanted it.
Well, it's
All
gone.
right, moving on. They have adventure examples that are just a single half page for each example for level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 7th level characters. So they in each of these is just literally a half a page, but it actually gives you everything you really need. And I believe there are some maps at the back of the book that
Yep.
actually describe each of these locations. So this could easily be a 1 4-hour session for each of these adventures, or it could be a couple, depending on how long players want to do it. And you could actually run the players through all 6 of these adventures pretty easily. And they're actually not bad adventures. They're interesting. They are uh kind of getting to know you, getting to know your character, sort of thing, getting to know different types of low tier monsters. It gives you examples of the magic items and also quest rewards, and some good art of Minsk being charmed by a dryad. It looks like. Um, uh, yeah, he's definitely being
Or
charmed.
as
So
Nick's charming
I
word.
actually like these little adventure synopsis ideas because it gives you just kind of a sketch and an outline, and because of that, because they're so concise,
Hmm.
there's no railroad to them. It's sort of like, hey, here's a goal, here's some encounters, here's some things they might find along the path. Build an adventure out of it.
Yeah.
I'm
And
I'm
I think
always
that
down. Yeah, I'm always down with those kind of things being
My
in
my
those
yeah,
books.
my favorite part about this is like it's 2 paragraphs. Paragraph situation: a long forgotten ruin is rumored to hold a fiendish artifact called the Horns of the Beast. A villain hopes to claim the artifact and put it into terrible use. Hook, and it tells you the hook. Another paragraph, and then it gives you a list of potential encounters and says you can place this anywhere. However, for purposes of this, we are placing it at X place on the Greyhawk map at the end of this book, and you can use this map for this temple whenever you arrive at this location. And like literally, it's just a half a page, but I could easily create 2 or 3 sessions out of that if I wanted
Oh
to.
yeah,
Throw in a couple of
absolutely.
random encounters, a little bit of potion buying in one of the towns and gathering information at the tavern.
Yep.
Like
You get to create a villain that's trying to get the item and put it to
absolutely, yeah.
use. Like there's tons and tons of things you could do with that. You could make an entire damn campaign of that if you wanted to.
Yeah, and to be honest, I'm actually tempted to grab these 5 adventures and port them over to Roll20 just to like run this as one shots for a couple of my friends in 2024, just to kind of run people through it and just to learn the system and just pick up what the changes are and everything like that because they're very simple and be pretty easy to lay out. So
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff I want to see in a DM's guide. I need a lot of the stuff that's in DM's guides I have no use for, but things like that just give me ideas.
yeah,
They're wonderful.
yes,
The entire Jeff Ashworth collection that I've picked up over the years has been great for stuff like that because it's literally just full of ideas.
yeah,
yep,
I've used a lot of his stuff for that too.
yeah.
Like if I just needed a little something else, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna add a vault and I'm gonna add 3 different of these puzzles and traps in order to get past this to figure this out. Oh yeah, and also you guys failed this trap or you did this puzzle the wrong way. I don't know. A bunch of fae show up and try to stab you. Um, so yeah. Anyway, chapter 4, like, is so far is I think is my favorite chapter of the book. There's just enough. There's a lot of stuff here for DMs that are actually quite good. It's better than the DM's toolbox chapter, which is kind of weak. A lot of just optional shit like renown and things like that. Um, but yeah, that's chapter 4.
Yeah,
Next
so
chapter is
we spent half an
5,
hour on chapter 4.
but there's a lot to go over of chapter 4. Chapter 5 is creating campaigns. It's kind of gloss over real quick. We can come back and look at them. So chapter 5 is creating campaigns, and that's where the Greyhawk presentation is. And
Uh-huh.
I think Waples mentioned it the other day that all of the Greyhawk stuff kind of like they put it on like this faded parchment paper that looks just like one of the old school, books you might pick
Yeah.
up for
It's
Greyhawk.
it looks so cool in the DMG.
Yeah.
Like it's right
And
there.
I
But
think I've mentioned it before, but like the map that for Greyhawk City itself, the free city of Greyhawk is fucking fantastic. I mean, it is a really well done map. Big fan. Go ahead, Christian. You're saying something.
so it is neat in the kind of building a campaign before they get to just presenting a campaign world. They do go over some very generalized, just like what are kinds of campaigns. Like they give you like heroic fantasy, sword and sorcery, swashbuckling, intrigue, and just give you kind of a brief synopsis and then a couple of ideas of like what kind of stories or adventures can you run in those kinds of campaigns. So I thought that was nice. They're super brief, but it just is there to again either inspire ideas or inform you if you are a brand new DM and like, well, how do I run game? What kind of games can I run? So you could have a whole thing that is in espionage and intrigue stories, like that's based in a city.
So now, one thing that I always tell people who are trying to write their own campaign is to start small. Literally, just make an adventure, make a town, and then start building out from there. Does it actually give any information on? Does it actually state that basically, or does it just say here, write this campaign? Like
It actually does
you need a
say
method to the madness.
you should start your location in a small place like a village and neighborhood of a large city or a small outpost or just a roadside tavern and start small and then you build out as they adventure in the world.
Okay, that's good because people. I see on the DM resources all the time. People are asking how to build a campaign, and that's the first thing that every one of them needs to learn is you don't just write a whole goddamn world and campaign. That takes a lot of time.
Yeah, no, literally one of the sentences here is if you're building your own setting, start small by only detailing the starting area. The rest of your campaign can remain undeveloped for now.
Good.
Don't
Yeah,
spend too much time fleshing it out or all the geopolitical landscape of your world or locations when you don't know where your adventures are going to visit.
Yeah, because the adventure is what matters.
Yeah.
I like how one of the premises was just war. But I was looking at the list.
Was what?
Just war.
Oh yeah.
Just war.
That
Well, that's
I mean, it definitely
that's
is.
Dragonlance.
Yeah.
it is also one of the hardest campaigns to write by
It is.
far.
The one after war was crossing the streams, and all I could start thinking of Ghostbusters is a
Ghostbusters.
setting now.
Damn right it is.
No, it's definitely talking about White Plume Mountain aliens and that kind of nonsense.
Yeah.
Though it does mention
not White Plume Mountain.
an old
Talking
TSR
about
setting of
Barrier
Gamma
Peaks.
World.
Yeah.
Yeah, Barrier Peaks.
Nonsense. It's the
Yeah.
best.
But yeah, so again, before they present Greyhawk, just after the campaign setting and creating your own setting and stuff like that, they also go over pretty thoroughly character creation in session 0. And I don't think I'm not sure we really used to do this when we were kids,
We did
but
not.
I think I started doing this maybe a few years ago, around the time I think I hit 5th edition. I mean, session 0, I think initially was just kind of like, okay, what's everyone playing, so we can kind of make a well-rounded party. But this one kind of goes over, what do players want from the game, and you know, are you looking for guardrails or guide rails? Are you looking for a railroad? Are you looking for a sandbox? What kind of game are you looking for before I waste a whole bunch of time preparing Rime of the Frost Maiden when you guys want to be doing city adventures? That sort of thing. So
This is kind of what I did way back in the day. I didn't know there wasn't a name for it then, or at least if there was, I didn't recognize it. But when I ran Birthright in
Yeah.
Easton's house way back in the day,
fun.
I gave you guys a whole bunch of selections of like, hey, what area of the world do you want to set it in? And I described the different kind of a brief, like a paragraph of the area of the world and the kind of adventures or the kind of conflict they would be involved in if they were going to be in that area. And I let the players pick which area. Then I was like, okay, now that you guys have picked your area of the world, here are your playable kingdoms and temples and things that you can pick for your players to run. And that's, brief descriptions of those. But it was kind of getting together with the players to go, okay, where are we going to set this? What kind of game are you guys interested in being involved in? And then we'll go from there.
Yeah, the first time I think I ever heard the term Session Zero was probably, I don't know, probably 8 or 9 years ago. Maybe I think Eason was running a game, and it's like, "What do you guys want from a game?" And it was that, because every other time it was like friend Rob had been running games every week for us for a decade or something like that. But it was like, this is a continuation of the game I've been running since I was in high school. This is like this fifth iteration of it. You guys are the good guys now, and like we just went from there. It's like, I have a game in mind. You guys make good guys go. And as recently as maybe 3 years ago, whenever we started a Spelljammer game, there was like, our friend Kevin sent out like basically a questionnaire of, what do you guys want to do? What is like, do you guys want to be space pirates? Do you guys want to be good guys righting the wrongs of the universe? What do you guys want to do? And like, there's like, he gave us like, I think 10 questions that basically boiled it down of how you guys want to go about doing this. And the DMD doesn't quite get into that sort of depth, and at least in the page I'm on right here, but they do kind of bring together a couple of things about bringing the party together. And the best way to do it is a bonding event, such as a wedding, a festival, a funeral, that brings the characters together, whereupon they quickly discover a shared sense of purpose. Happenstance, someone puts out a call for adventurers to complete a quest, and the adventurers answer the call. A mutual acquaintance, they all know a certain NPC or patron or something like that. The classic tavern gathering. Shared history, maybe they all grew up like in a town. Like, I think one of the last Pathfinder games I played, we were all from the same town. We were all like, you know, farmers' children and stuff like that ended up adventuring because the whole town gets wiped out, and we have to
I
go figure
I literally did that exact thing for a
Yeah,
Dragonlance
it's
campaign.
classic. It's absolutely a classic, especially in a war-torn world, right?
Yep.
But then it goes through like starting adventure, setting the stage in your first adventure, and then planning your adventures after that. And it also kind of goes over like episodes and serials. Like, are you going to do a Monster of the Week sort of thing where you have a different episode? It's going to be like MacGyver, and everything's enclosed. Like, the party ends up wrapping it up at the end of every session, or is it serialized? Broken up smaller parts that flow naturally from one adventure to the next. So, it gives you a little bit of advice on adventuring, like linking adventures together and really kind of getting players, invested in the game. Um, but yeah, it's a pretty decent chapter before it gets to the Greyhawk stuff. And I will say that, having been playing Greyhawk for the last 4 years and being very fond of it when I was a kid, even though I never actually really got to play it, the Greyhawk chapter is great. It's
I'm
got
just
it's
glad
got
they went
the
back
Tomb
to
of
it.
Horrors, and it has the open mouth of the green demon on the wall. That's
Yeah,
so many people have jumped into.
after 30 years of Forgotten Realms, I'm just glad they're back on Greyhawk.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad to see it here. I think for the 50th anniversary and to show up in the core rules, that Greyhawk, that's a great place for Greyhawk. I do want to mention one thing before we get into Greyhawk. So they go into like campaign settings and they give you, hey, what are the D&D campaign settings? And they list out what they are. And this makes me think, okay, this is what they are regarding as their campaign settings where they might make stuff for. They mentioned Dark Sun.
Yeah,
they didn't mention Birthright though.
They did not. They mentioned Dragonlance, Eberron, Exandria, the world of Critical Role, Forgotten Realms,
which is not theirs. So I'm not sure how that's going to work.
Yeah, I don't think they own the rights
They
to it.
do not.
I don't know
Yeah.
I don't know what their deal is with whether or not they're allowed to.
Because Mercer and them are making their own tabletop game.
They're still publishing Exandria content for D&D Beyond. It's one of the settings that you can buy and purchase right now. So
Yeah,
like
there's some.
I mean, Mercer is
deal
going to leave
then.
money on the table.
Yeah, I think they can probably use their the existing stuff that they have already. I don't whether we'll ever see more of that. I don't know, but they listed it in the book: Forgotten Realms, Greyhawk, Planescape. Always glad to see that. Ravenloft, and then they mention Ravnica,
Yep.
Spelljammer,
which I'll get to in
Strixhaven,
tangent.
and Theros.
Mhm.
And they list these with their other core campaign settings. These
I will say
three
there's a little
Magic.
asterisk to the Magic the Gathering ones. It says this setting is based on the Magic the Gathering world. So
It
yeah.
is, but I know at least Ravnica and Theros did pretty well as far as books went.
Ravnica was the first of the Magic the Gathering ones to come out, and Ravnica is, if not it's one of the most popular Magic settings.
We were
Yeah.
having a discussion, and we were talking about Magic sets and stories and whatnot, and you guys are like, no, story doesn't matter. And Jay still, story doesn't matter at all for a Magic set being successful or not.
It really doesn't.
I think that Jay is right. I think it doesn't matter. I think the world building, though, the world
The
you
setting
present,
matters.
like the setting, how interesting is the setting and the characters that inhabit that setting? I think that is way more important than any written story about it. Because honestly, that's what sold Dark Sun. Dark Sun people
Mhm.
loved the setting, but they hated the adventures that were written for it because the adventures followed the story of the book series that was written for Dark Sun.
So did Dragonlance.
And even in the adventures, your characters that you were playing, first of all, they were very railroady adventures, and then your characters weren't the real heroes. You were doing stuff, and then the DM would read you a passage describing what the heroes from the books did to fight the big villains.
Yeah, the Dragonlance ones, like the original adventures that came out, from my understanding, you're literally just playing your characters in the place of the characters from the novels.
That would have
So-
been one thing, but I hated that the Dark Sun one was literally like,
Yeah,
the
you're
real
secondary.
heroes of the story are doing this. You guys got a key to a room for them and then turned it over to the real heroes.
Yeah, there was a little bit that went on in Forgotten Realms too, with Drizzt and fucking Elminster and shit. And a lot of the times, I remember in second edition when I started reading these books, I was like, why the fuck are we even adventuring? These guys can just snap their fucking fingers and actually do the things that we're doing. And the real answer is, oh, it's beneath them, and they're too busy to do it. But it still just kind of felt, oh, cool.
That's why you have other superheroes besides Superman. He's too busy doing other shit.
Yeah,
and
but
actually, that's a problem that I've actually run into with my campaign. Is my players have this sense of like, why are we doing this? Aren't there other heroes that should be dealing with the giant fucking floating undead planet that's fucking up there? And really, my players haven't really addressed it. Really haven't. They've been subjected to effects of it, but they haven't actually tried to solve the problem yet. So they keep
the way
kind of saying,
the way you run stuff for that is this because you run into a problem if you write any sort of world-ending, world-shaking event. It doesn't make sense for the best and most powerful heroes of the world to not be involved.
right.
There's no reason they wouldn't be involved in it.
And,
If you
and
run smaller stakes stuff that is more about hey, we're going to take down a crime lord, or we're fighting to get this this artifact from these guys that we don't know what they'll do with it, but you run smaller scale stuff, and then it makes sense. Well, yeah, they're not involved because this is just not big enough for them to take action on.
Well, what I was trying to get at is that this world-ending thing that's shown up there has just been a side piece. Like, they've experienced that the City of the Dead has undead coming through because this seems to be an undead planet. They're getting a lot of visions and they're seeing a lot of things with it, and they're still like, this is way out of our pay grade. And one of the things that I'm trying to address with them, probably at the end, since I have one more session with the current story arc before we start addressing the giant undead planet, is they save Waterdeep from a cult of Asmodeus. They've essentially going to uproot and defeat Manchun, okay, who's not a slouch when it comes to your level of villainy and effects in the world. Granted, it's not a world-ending effect, but they're still a part of the world that exists there. And by the time they're finished, they're going to be, I think they're going to be 13th level, okay? which is not from a heroic perspective. That's nothing to scoff at. They still feel like they're small because they're just situated in Waterdeep. Waterdeep is a very big city. But part of is a little bit of a spoiler, but part of it of the next session is that they're gonna be a part of the grander story things. They're gonna see other heroes that have shown up. Maybe Dritz will show up. Maybe Minx and Boo will show up. They're gonna be a part of that, and they may not be. I have to strive and find that right balance on the story side of basically making them feel like they're contributing and also not feel like they're just doing the real heroes, quote unquote, dirty work. And I have a couple ideas on how I'm going to address that. I don't want to address that now because obviously it'd be too much of a spoiler, but I'll tell you guys offline. And that is a balance that I've been trying to figure out how to strike instead of just saying, "Oh, yeah, you got the MacGuffin. Now hand it to Dritz because Dritz is important." I just fucking if I do that, my wife can kill me.
I would kill you.
Yeah.
I'm not even in your game, and I would kill you.
But
Yeah,
I wanted like to see Dritz. Like, there's fucking Dritz. He's doing the same thing you are. Yes, that giant may be bigger than the giant you just killed, but it doesn't mean that you're nothing compared to him.
From personal experience, don't do that.
Yeah.
No, I have a very good idea on how I want it to be done.
It's probably a terrible idea that you think is a good idea.
Okay, then I'm definitely doing it.
Yeah, we.
Okay, you're going to be sleeping on the couch for next year then.
Yeah, one of our game masters fairly recently had 2 NPCs show up. We chatted with them for a little while. They joined us on a hunt, and then we go in there. We're fighting some hill giants. We're 5th level or whatever, and we're kicking the shit out of them. And then they just each kill 1 hill giant apiece, over the course of a round. And we're like, oh, okay, cool, awesome. Why the fuck?
Yeah, and that's something I'm trying to avoid because, like, even with the Eve of Ruin stuff, like, you have Mordenkainen and Tasha and Alariel Silverhand there, and they just sit in the fucking camp essentially and just go, "Yes, oh, you got the next piece. That's great. All right, now go there and do that." Like, what? Can you fucking come with me?
Yeah, because it is a poorly done adventure. There's no explanation when you're actually if Vecna is a multiverse ending threat.
Yeah,
there is no reason those people shouldn't have been involved in the adventures. If they really want to do it, you should be playing those people,
right?
And going through to do it. And the fact that they just kind of sit there and hand out quests is dumb.
Yep.
It really does annoy me. And, I try to keep those in-between sessions somewhat interesting, but it really is a Baldur's Gate 3 effect of like, okay, we're long resting. Okay, here's the NPC in the camp. He's going to tell us some story time. Oh, Gale, you got to blow up, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's just fucking... They're just
it serves no purpose. Yeah.
It's so annoying.
Yeah. But my kind of point in bringing this up was, I'm glad that they mention and call out all their worlds in there. It's interesting the things that they mention and the things that they leave out. I wonder if hopefully maybe some of these will see some other attention. We know Forgotten Realms is coming out with their 2 books later down the line, and it'd be kind of nice to see some more attention for these other ones.
I think this list is mostly the list because that's what's for sale on D&D Beyond right now. I don't think they'll ever make another Strixhaven book. They might make another Ravnica book. Ravnica is really good from a story setting perspective.
Ravnica is a really good setting.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun. I don't know how cool Theros is as a setting because ancient Greece just isn't
it's just
bag.
ancient Greece.
I thought it was cool. I liked that was one of the sets
I would
liked.
love to play an adventure in effectively fantasy ancient Greece. That'd be awesome.
It reminds me they in 2nd edition they released those campaign books of ancient Rome and the Vikings handbook and stuff like that.
I have a couple of those.
Those were popular. Those were cool ways to do hey, you can play D&D in ancient Rome.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the big difference is with Ravnica, it's a big enough place, kind of like Waterdeep, where you don't really need to address the big side things. Like, nothing changes there. The guilds are always going to be there. For for all intents and purposes, the guilds are always going to be there. They're always going to have a guild leader. It could change. It could be
The
a
guild
temporary
leaders
one.
will change, yeah.
Yeah, like that stuff is normal. But
Well, the important point
with
for
Theros,
a book though, they don't have to follow exactly everything that's been established in Magic the Gathering. They don't have to care about that. What they can do is take the world building that Magic the Gathering done, the world that they presented, and they can include that or expand upon it and go, hey, well, this is all they've told you about Magic the Gathering, but we've filled in some of the edges and made a few more things and detailed some things that weren't there. You can do that and have the kind of separate and have it be separate for D&D for the purposes of a D&D campaign setting.
I mean, they could just write adventures in Ravnica,
Yes.
just an adventure booklet and release it.
But what I'm trying to say is that works for Ravnica. It doesn't work for Theros, and it doesn't work for Strixhaven. Well, maybe it can for Strixhaven because
It's a school of magic. I mean,
it's a school of magic. The teachers can change, and that's really its scope. But with Theros, a big part of Theros is the gods that are in Theros. Okay, and especially giving the recent events and the storylines in Magic the Gathering, especially with Phyrexia and March of the Machine, those gods have gone, and the landscape of Theros has drastically changed. So that Theros book is just a snapshot in time versus Ravnica is always changing. And
that's all any of the books ever are. Every campaign setting for the Forgotten Realms is a snapshot in time.
Yes, but it's easier to work that with Ravnica than it would be with Theros.
Yeah.
Because you have someone that's going to come up and go, oh, cool, we're playing Theros. And you're like, oh, yeah. And then the god of, whatever is it, life and death, the snake guy. Yeah, he's going crazy again. What do you mean he's going crazy again? He fucking died like 5 days ago. Like, oh, no, this is before that. And then it's just...
I think that would only be the case with you and the 4 other people that pay attention to all the magic lore.
yeah, you say that, but
yeah, he does say that, and he's right. Let's move on.
So
yeah, we're already at an hour now, so
let's finish up the chapter, which is really just a love letter to Greyhawk, and I've skimmed through it and recognized a number of different names of different locations, and the maps that are in the back of the book are one side is the entirety of the Flaness with it's just an updated version of the hex map that Gygax had created back in 1970s and 80s, but it also actually keys in a number of the original first and second edition adventures, which is just fantastic in my opinion.
Yeah, we kind of talked about it last week. At least the map itself, we talked about.
But there in the actual description of Greyhawk, it gives you pretty much a full description of the city of Greyhawk, and it also gives you a lot of different locations. Just give you a brief summary of a lot of the different locations. But it also tells you about adventures that are located in these locations. But it also gives you, ideas for adventures like different cults that you can go battle against, or the Brotherhood, the Scarlet Brotherhood, or whatever. A bunch of different stuff that you can do, and kind of hooks that where you can start, and also kind of ties into Greyhawk is a large city, but you can establish your bastions in these locations, of course, tying to bastions later on in DMG. So,
wait, the Scarlet Brotherhood is from Greyhawk?
I think so.
Yeah.
At this point in time, I don't think Blizzard has an original IP at all.
Oh no, they they took ideas from everything.
Take ideas, they just copy pasted.
Yep.
Oh, your Space Marine isn't like my Space Marine because mine's a Space Marine and yours is a Space Marine.
Yeah, Scarlet Brotherhood is definitely from Greyhawk.
Scarlet Order, yeah.
God damn it. No,
Scarlet
this
Brotherhood,
is
aka the Scarlet
not
Order, most
Warhammer.
often refers to the great and hidden empire of the Scarlet Brotherhood, also known as the Kingdom of Char or the Land of Purity, located in the nation of Tilvanot Peninsula in the southern Flaness.
Well, there you
Bad,
go.
bad men. And I think, yeah, they definitely tie into the Slave Lord series of modules.
Oh yeah, actually on the
Sea Barons.
Yeah, I think the Greyhawk setting, like they did a great little setting. It gives you some overview. It doesn't go overboard on details. It gives you enough details for the city of Greyhawk to have an idea of kind of how it operates and a few interesting places, and then it touches, just on a kind of a quick, grand tour of the realms of Greyhawk, of the other places, just giving you some ideas of the kingdoms and what they're like, and maybe some like who the rulers of places are. It's enough that you could run stuff there without it being so detailed that you feel like you're kind of trapped by the details.
In something that's really nice is that they have a very, a very, very brief description of a number of the locations that you can find in Greyhawk, and kind of tells you what you can find there and how much money things cost. And some things that are like, they sometimes you just you find yourself looking for, or just kind of throwing a number out because you don't know, you just don't want to actually look it up. But like, for example, in the Temple of the Radiant Sun, there is the archpriest Serana, who's always carrying around her staff of healing, and you can purchase from the temple spells of greater restoration, spell scrolls of greater restoration for 3,200 gold pieces apiece, or remove curse for 300 gold pieces apiece. You can also pay to have somebody raised there. You can also, uh, uh, work for them in exchange of service for the greater good to gain these things. Like if you want to have your friend raised because you're only level 3 and you don't have the money to do it, you can basically get a quest from them to go do a thing. So, for example, it says service of greater good. The temple might call upon the adventurers to perform good acts in the city or abroad. Serana is particularly vigilant about the threat of elemental evil, since she was involved in the battle itself of Temple of Elemental Evil 7 years earlier. In exchange for the service, characters and their companions are entitled to 50% discount on all goods purchased at the temple. So, like, different things like that are kind of cool. And there's like a magic item shop that tells you, the different things that you can do there, and kind of couple of quest hooks. But it's not just here's a description of the yawning portal and here's the guy that runs it, he's like a 20th level fighter and retired and stuff. Like it gives you actually hooks and things that an adventurer is likely to need when going to said place. So but it also doesn't elaborate too far. It gives you, like I said, a couple of paragraphs, but it's enough information for you to go on, and you can just if you expand on it if you need to. So yeah, it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool chapter. But I think we're coming up to an hour, so I'm feeling like we're
Here's,
getting ecology up in here.
here's my quick note. This is the only place in the core book so far where you will find a list of deities.
That's true.
There are no deities in the player's handbook.
Mm-hmm.
There are, even when it talks about clerics, and there are no listed anywhere else except in this section here.
Yeah, I think they're definitely trying to move away from that as a whole thing. Just maybe just to get the political side off of it, But it's okay. I mean, I think deities definitely need to be more in lore books, not in the DMG. I think the section does talk about how to create deities and like.
It gives you a brief guide on how to create your own pantheon, but the fact that they used to have, even in the PHP, the appendix, it was like, hey, here are examples of pantheons from the real world, and it's like, who was getting up in arms by them listing out the Greek gods?
Literally nobody. I think
Thor and Tyr and
I'm curious if they're going to release another not legend lore book, but there used to be a book on the gods that they would release.
There were several of them. They did one just for the Forgotten Realms, but there was one for monsters. There was one called Monster Mythology, but deities and demigods.
Deities and demigods, like they could do another version of that. If they're not putting this information in the DM's guide or the player's handbook, that might be their plan.
They kind of allude to maybe that it might show up only in campaign settings, so you will only find the gods for a particular campaign setting in that campaign setting. But I would love to see an updated new kind of deities and demigods book.
Well, I think that the Forgotten Realms campaign books they're coming out with is 2 separate books, one for the player, one for the DM. So we'll see.
So Christian, I got to ask, what is your ecology that you wanted to talk about? That way, because we might have the same thing since we haven't talked about it.
I don't think so. I doubt it. I found the ecology of the Gorbel.
Okay, yeah. So I'll let you go ahead and do yours. Then I'm going to give the ecology of the Catoblepas.
Oh no, go with that. We'll do mine next time.
You think so? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't want to take too much time.
That's fair.
Oh, I love
All right.
the Catoblepas.
Yeah, I know. See, I knew you and Christian were super
Yeah.
familiar with the Catoblepas, and Christian had mentioned it a few weeks ago. So I'm like,
Yep.
what the hell? So I went digging.
I don't know what the Catoblepas is.
Yeah, a lot of people don't. It's not in the monster manual for 5e. I think it's in Mordenkainen's. I believe I didn't find exactly. I just pulled it up on 5e tools. And I've got the first edition one and the third edition one pulled up as well. But the actual ecology article from Dragon Magazine was in Dragon Magazine number 73, which came out in 1983. So this is a first edition ecology. And it actually, the ecology as written up does not line up with what's in the monster manuals, which is a little odd. So the article that was written, it basically says that there's male and female Catoblepas. And for anyone who's not familiar with Catoblepas, it's this buffalo type creature it's like a buffalo's body with a tail that has like a club at the end of it, and it has almost a giraffe's head attached to it without the musculature to raise the head properly.
Yeah.
And these things are incredibly dangerous, much less so in 5th edition, but in 1st edition they all have a death gaze no matter which edition you're looking at. If this thing looks at you, you die. With the 5th edition one, there are saving throws, of course. If the target must make a DC 16 con save or take 8d8 necrotic damage on a failed save, etc., etc. 1st and 2nd edition, if this thing looked at you, you die. There's no saving throw. You're just dead. Which is
I would
Yeah.
flip the table if my DM killed me with something so stupid looking.
it
Well,
does yeah.
Like, oh my god! It like the first edition image of
It's
this is
almost
just
like a warthog's head.
yeah, with like a big snort, like a snout that you'd see on a pig or something. Like, oh my god!
Yeah, and there are percentage chances that it looks at you. If you're moving quickly, it has like a 10% chance to look at you. So I guess in 1st edition, the way to kill these things is just run and then
Just
attack it.
run
and
really fast.
Yeah, just keep running and hitting it. It gives you the
I'm,
best chance
so
of
I'm
not
dead
dying.
IRL.
Yeah, you're screwed.
Mhm.
You gotta run to live.
in 1st edition, there was actually rules and stuff where they talked about how to like polish your shield to a mere
Yes.
shine, because you would do that to fight like Medusas and stuff. You would have to get
yeah.
like the mirror shield and like not
I
look.
mean, that is
because-
pretty classic.
Well,
Yeah.
they had rules for like fighting without looking, right? Because you would take your penalty to your Thaco to try to swing when you were trying to like hide behind your shield.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
disadvantage just makes it so much more easy to handle that now.
So the article it it writes out that there are 2 factions of wizards who are trying to figure out exactly where the Catoblepas came from, how it actually operates, how it breeds, et cetera, et cetera. And these two orders are having a debate basically where one of them he scries on a Catoblepas and he's done a lot of research on these things up close, and he scries so everybody can see the Catoblepas, and they start talking about it, and there's male and female. They do not look the same. The female Catoblepas is the one that you would see in the 1st edition monster manual and every other monster manual. The male one looks much more like a kangaroo, and the female ones they all have the death gaze, but the one big discrepancy from the monster manual and the ecology article is that the female Catoblepas also has a stench that actually acts as a poisonous gas cloud up to 60 feet. So if it in the 1st edition monster manual, it does not have that. In the 2nd edition monster manual, it does not have that. Third edition, there's nothing like that. It mentions a scent, Catoblepas can detect approaching enemies, sniff out hidden foes, and track by sense of smell, but it has nothing about that gas cloud. 5th edition, however, actually does have the stench listed. And this is on the 5e tools, so I'm assuming this is accurate. Any creature other than a Catoblepas that starts its turn within 10 feet of it must succeed on a DC 16 con save or be poisoned until the start of its next turn. The ecology, however, does mention that stench cloud is lethal. Like, it will kill you as quick as the death gaze will. So I don't know how, I'm not sure why there is that discrepancy, why that has never been utilized, but I like it. It makes it even more dangerous.
I haven't taken enough drugs in my lifetime to understand why this thing instantly kills you by looking at you.
It's that damn ugly. I mean,
Yeah.
if you look
Is
at the
that
picture,
the joke? Is that the joke? It's just that damn ugly that it kills you by
No.
looking at you?
In the old, I think in the older edition, it was just so horrid to look upon that, like, yeah, or I don't know, I can't remember if it was its horrid nature or the fact that it has a gaze that, like, a gaze attack that kills you.
yeah.
I'm not sure you included this, but I'm looking up the Catoblepas on the Forgotten Realms wiki, and of course all
Yeah.
of this stuff is linked, everything. But it's a miserable mix of buffalo, dinosaur, warthog, and hippopotamus that lives in the swamps and wastelands. But the thing that caught my eye was that patron deity, the Raven Queen.
Oh no, I did not
What?
know about that. That's not
What?
mentioned. That's not mentioned in the ecology or the bestiary or anything like
That must
that.
be edition, 4th edition, because I don't think Raven Queen existed till then.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she doesn't come out until, well, now I guess.
No, I think Raven 3rd edition. Pretty
No,
sure.
she came out in 4th.
Was
Yeah.
it?
The
Okay.
Shadowfell and Ravenclaw were 4th. Okay, here it is. Catoblepases of the Shadowfell were known to accompany the Raven Queen. Her worshippers often embarked on hunts for Catoblepases. I feel like it should be Catoblepi. Searching for their deity's blessing. And those who returned from the hunt alive and bearing one's head earned the great esteem amongst their peers. Catoblepases were also considered suitable quarry for the wild hunt by the inhabitants of the Feywild. Huh.
I mean,
That
they do.
Edition is
Yeah,
dumb.
they
So
do hunt.
that is from Monster Manual 3 4th edition from 2010.
You know,
Well,
there was actually a conversation I want to get ahead of you guys. I actually picked up a bunch of 4th edition books over the weekend.
I'm sorry.
Well, there's a couple that I didn't have, the chromatic and metallic dragon books. I also got additional. The guy sold me his whole set because he didn't want to break it up, so I bought them all for the same price. And I do now have the Monster Manual for 4th edition, number 3, right here in front of me. So I'm going to look up the Catoblepas, see if
Oh,
he's in
okay.
there.
Okay, while you're doing that, I've gone down the rabbit hole now.
Here it goes.
Okay, the Catoblepas is actually ultimately from the Greek to look downwards. It is a legendary creature from Ethiopia, first described by Pliny the Elder. So actually, there is some historic description from this. This wasn't just Gygax going to the fucking Dollar General and picking out some random thing that just was a misprint of a miniature of a cow. This is literally Greek mythology.
Huh.
And it's further described in the notebooks of Leonardo da Vinci. It is
Oh, okay.
found in Ethiopia near the source of the Nicarapo. It is not a very large animal, is sluggish in all its parts, and its head is so large that it carries it with difficulty. In such wise that it is always droops towards the ground. Otherwise, it would be a great pest to any man. For anyone who fixes eyes upon it dies immediately. Like literally, he just took this straight from
I mean,
mythology and then put it in D&D.
he does that a lot. Like, there are tons and
I
tons of
didn't know
things.
it was from
But
Greek mythology.
yeah.
Did you, Christian?
I have read. I want to say I'd read it somewhere. I would have to think because I've read the stuff from Pliny. I've read Pliny the Elder
Mm-hmm.
of his like descriptions of mythological creatures and stuff.
Oh.
But there are some accounts from the Greeks that sometimes they give it a stone gaze instead of a death gaze,
Mhm.
and I think they generally consider it like this was their like weird explanation of when they first saw like a cape like buffalo. Had no idea what that was.
Yeah, probably. So just looking at it in other media, Catoblepas actually appears in the Theros and Theros Beyond Death expansion sets in Magic the Gathering. It appears as an enemy in Castlevania video games.
That's where I know it from.
Yep,
It
probably.
sounded
It's also in
familiar.
the Witcher video game. It is the preferred meat for a spoiled princess in the Witcher video game.
Huh.
It also appears in Yu-Gi-Oh! What the
Yeah,
heck?
everything confused in Yu-Gi-Oh.
Whoa. Also appears as a Gorgon in Heroes of Might and Magic 3.
Huh. That's way back.
Wow. This is a rabbit hole that
So
Catoblepas, boys.
to finish up the ecology article, at least. So I've mentioned the two wizard organizations that were sort of battling it out. The one he was scrying on it, and then he tells them all about the difference between the male and the female of it. And the other ones they get really concerned because they had sent their compatriots out to go kill one, and they had sent them with just a mirrored shield, not actually knowing about the poison cloud.
Oh God.
So you're gonna have a bunch of dead people on your hands.
Yeah.
Nice.
So in the 4th edition manual, there's 2 Catoblepases. A Catoblepas Harbinger and a Catoblepas Tragian? Whatever.
Okay, Trajan.
So the Harbinger is the weaker of the 2. It's a level 10 elite. The other one's a level 18 elite controller.
Holy shit, these are way more powerful than the normal ones.
So yeah, it's got a hell of an initiative. The Death Gaze is called Withering Gaze. Recharges when no enemy is affected with this power. It's a close burst 10. 1 bloody creature in the burst. Plus 21 versus will. You take 1d8 plus 9 necrotic damage, and the target is weakened on a hit. Then, on your first failed saving throw, you become weakened and blinded. And then if you fail a second time, the target hit points drop to -1.
Wow.
So still moderately dangerous.
Yeah, the -1 isn't much of an issue in 4th edition because you have to be negative your hit points to die. But that is pretty bad.
So, yeah, that.
Oh, by the way, the Pathfinder, the Catoblepas from Pathfinder, actually has a breath of gas.
Yeah, it has a poison breath attack and 4th.
So
also the picture I put it in our podcast chat on our Discord. It looks nothing like the other ones. It's like a swamp creature with a weird fucking
swamp creature is how it's described on the Forgotten Realms wiki. But let me actually give you this description that is from Pliny the Elder. The one known description of the Catoblepas is said to resemble a Cape buffalo with its heads always pointing downward due to its great weight. Its stare or breath could turn people into stone or kill them. The Catoblepas is often thought to be based on real-life encounters with the wildebeest, such as that some dictionaries say the word is synonymous with gnu, G-N-U, which is also what a wildebeest is called.
Right.
Other depictions have it sporting the head of a hog and the body of a Cape buffalo, and is often referred to as the African version of a gorgon. I did not know any of this. And Pliny the Elder also continues on and says he thought its gaze, like that of a basilisk, was lethal, making the heaviness of his head quite fortunate for any who would see it.
So there we go. That's
Wow.
why I like doing these ecologies.
This is a deep dive. Like, the art. I will say the art makes it look so fucking stupid. But man, like, it's got 2,000 years of history.
Yeah.
I can't shit on this monster anymore.
The more you know.
Yeah. Right.
That's why we do these ecologies. So
you know what? I'm
everybody,
gonna go
including
pull
us,
up my Greek mythology book here in a minute, see if I can find more.
Yeah.
I'll come back next week with more information.
Well, next time you run Throne of Bloodstone, there's going to be a herd of Catoblepi hanging out there.
We'll see what CR they are. See what kind of monster.
So what is the proper noun for a group of Catoblepases?
I mean, according to Wikipedia, it's Catoblepas. I feel like Catoblepi should be it, but
I think it's a troop of Catoblepas.
You think it's a troop?
Oh,
yeah, I think troop. Yeah.
Troop works. Maybe a stone.
That's not bad. A stone of Catoblepas.
Yeah.
A Raven Queen.
So yeah, the Catoblepas in 5e is just meh.
Yeah,
Every
it's
monster in 5e.
As are
is
most
just,
monsters.
Yep. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't even talk about the tail. Like if first edition or second edition, if that tail hits you, you are stunned for 1d10 rounds.
Good
I mean,
I
God.
love it.
he's still being stunned for in 5e it's +7
It does
to hit,
stun you,
reach
but it's
10
not.
foot, 5d6 +4 bludgeoning, and DC 16 con or stunned until its next turn.
Yeah, it's still nasty.
Yeah, and the whole recharging on a 5 to 6 death ray is whatever.
Yeah, but that's just in line with the rules of how 5e
I mean, it's in line with
works.
the rest of the rules of 5e. I understand. Even an ancient dragon's breath weapon doesn't recharge that fast, but
Yep,
still,
makes it a lot less threatening.
it does. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why I need a herd, or what did we call it?
I like a
Stone.
stone.
A stone of Catoblepas. All right.
Yep, I think we're done here.
I think so too.
Later, guys.
All right, y'all.